In a world of challenges and uncertainties, hope shines as a beacon, guiding us through the dark times and showing us the way to brighter days ahead. But what exactly is hope? Where does it come from? And how does it shape our lives? I'm Annie Bennett, and I'd love you to join me on this journey as I explore the meaning of hope. I'll delve into philosophical perspectives, personal stories, and scientific insights to understand the power of this elusive emotion. So whether you're seeking inspiration, comfort, or simply a deeper understanding of the human spirit, let's embark on this exploration together and discover the extraordinary power of hope. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Chronicles of Hope podcast with me, Annie Bennett. Oh my goodness me, I have got such an amazing guest for you today and I can't wait to introduce her. This lady is, and I've got to read this because I wrote it down, she is a public speaking coach, an event producer, but that really doesn't even scratch the surface to actually what she actually does and what she stands for. I am so delighted today to be talking to the fabulous Dani Wallace. Dani, welcome.
Thank you, Annie, so much for having me. I've been so excited about our conversation today. I'm sat here and I'm just beaming. I cannot wait to talk about all of the things with you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Now, I've known you for a few years now. I think I came across you online when during the pandemic. I think everyone got to know everyone during the pandemic.
We were just all looking at each other online, not knowing what to do.
Yeah. And we've met up a couple of times and I've come to some of your events, but I'll leave you to talk about those because you obviously, you can talk about those far better than I can describe them. But I think what my listeners would like to know is your story because it's such an inspiring story. The story of how you set up your business and why you set up your business. So could you perhaps talk to us about that?
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. So I am, like you said, I'm an event producer and a public speaking coach. I actually produce an event called the Big Festoon, which is one of the fastest growing business and personal development events in the UK. And we're really proud of that. We're a tiny team. There's just 5 of us on the team. Lots and lots of people who support us, like from the outside and suppliers. We're a tiny little core team with this vision that we want to create the biggest, safest, most inclusive business and personal development event, a place where we're going to have conversations that matter, that are centered in our growth and centered in our success, regardless of where we come from, regardless of our background, the color of our skin, our religion, our culture, whatever. You know, instead of creating a melting pot where the expectation is that we're all the same, the expectation is that we create a mosaic where our lived experiences are the things that make us richest, are the things that, you know, when we share that makes us rich as a community. But it didn't start there.
No.
And me creating that really stemmed from my experience of knowing what it's like to be not included, or even to exclude myself because I didn't think I was worthy of being in rooms or creating a business or wealth or success or happiness or whatever those things are, even intimate partner relationships. You know, I didn't feel worthy to create those things for myself. And that started from a really, really young age. So I grew up on the council estates of Preston, and the kind of fabric of information that I had growing up as a child and a young person were things like domestic abuse, addiction, misogyny, really imbalanced intimate partner relationships. And conversely, on the other edge of the sword, on the other side of the coin, was deep loyalty to family and deep loyalty to looking after each other, which I know sounds kind of a bit of a dichotomy, but that inherent, we've all got each other's backs, and at the same time there's sort of trauma there, and that's showing itself in behaviors that we don't have language to manage and so on and so forth, really sort of created that foundational understanding, my foundational understanding of the world. And what that meant was that when I got older, that had a direct impact on some of the decisions that I made. So I found at a relatively young age that if I was singing or performing or being funny, nobody was fighting. And I didn't realize that performance for me became not necessarily a trauma response, but certainly a response to the world around me to try and help keep people safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I always found that really fascinating that that sort of played out in a very beautiful but full circle way in the Big Festoon and what we've created. So very quickly, when I was 16, essentially I ran away with the circus. Which and it wasn't really the circus. It was holiday camps and cruise ships all over the world where I got to sing and perform. But it was never considered a proper job. So I came back to the UK and got a proper job and swapped a stage for a stage and started to work in the corporate world as a trainer, presenter, host, manager, all those sorts of things. So what I did is I got this sort of wealth of experience holding space on a stage and stagecraft and performance. And then I had this teaching experience that I got from the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
And whilst that all looked very successful and lovely on the surface, underneath, because of the information that I had and the way that I knew at the time how to make decisions, meant that I eventually experienced domestic abuse myself, and then eventually homelessness as a single parent with my 2 kids under the age of 3. And I swore that if ever I was to get out of that situation and survive it, I would spend the rest of my life in service. And so I kind of went from that point of sort of that rock bottom point where I didn't feel like I could make a good decision. It was having a direct impact on my children. I felt like a burden to everyone. To what if life stopped happening to me and I started happening to life? And I started to make intentional decisions based on what the best version of me would make. So if I was a millionaire, what kind of decisions would I make? If I was, the facilitator of an event that was 10,000 people strong and that was helping people and it made people feel at home and welcome and safe and included, what kind of decisions would that person make? And started to reverse engineer some of those things. So created the community online, accidentally fell into it through the power of live streaming and sticking my makeup on and telling people,
You did, yes.
it's great. Can you remember?
Yeah. Great. It was great.
So I first of all, I came out of corporate
Mm-hmm.
and started to rebuild my life. So found somewhere to live. It was in a relatively dangerous area at the time. Found somewhere to live. Started working for myself because as somebody who's experienced a significant amount of trauma, I found that I was absolutely unemployable and that
All
I
right.
didn't want to be told what to do because I didn't feel any autonomy. I didn't feel like I had control over anything. I was always at the behest of somebody else. And I didn't realize that that was a real thing and is a real thing for a lot of people. So started working for myself, started singing again because the only place that I was singing was when I was washing up or in the car or in the shower. And I would put my phone on my dashboard to keep myself safe, live stream, tell people where I were at. I'm in a back alley in Blackpool, about to work in a working men's club or some dingy pub somewhere. Here's the street that I'm on, everyone. Put my makeup on and share what I was getting up to and what I was doing in the books that I was reading. And by accident, I started to create a community. People would, because I'd work Friday day, Friday night, Saturday day, Saturday night, Sunday night. It's quite regular. Me putting my makeup on and getting ready for a gig and talking to people. It was not intentional that all of a sudden people would miss me if I missed a gig and I weren't putting my makeup on. Like I'd get messaged, "Are you okay, Dani? Like, what are you up to? Like, we've not seen you live for a while." And I thought, flipping heck, I've got a community here. And so I was like, right, well, let's get in a room. Let's get you all together. Let's talk. And so we put our first event on in 2018, 2019, went into lockdown. And then we grew from being in lockdown through to the other side of it. And now we have an event that next year is moving into an arena at 2,500 people strong. And I mean, that really is in a nutshell what I did and how I created it. But it was from that decision, Annie, that either life was going to continue happening to me and I was going to remain passive and a victim and not taking any responsibility over that. And that's not to victim blame myself or indeed anybody,
Mm.
but I got to reclaim some of the power that I had by allowing myself to make decisions, even if that decision in the day was, I choose gratitude for the breath in my body that I have this morning.
Yeah.
I needed to find something to be grateful for once every day. I needed to find something to look forward to, even if it was just picking my kids up from school and giving them a hug.
Mm.
And that was the thing that got me through the day. And then it was, I want to be able to pay for my family a full meal at a restaurant and nobody have to get their bank card out to pay. Like, I wanted to be able to do that. And these little things just started to grow as I started to move towards them. And here we are today. And I get to have this conversation with you. And I just think it's so beautiful that we've been in each other's world, sort of in the periphery of each other's world. And we get to kind of talk about this now, like that happened.
I know, it's amazing. And one of my favorite quotes is, and I was at an event last week, and I it was part of my talk, is life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And you are the embodiment of that, really, aren't you?
I mean, there's a long time where I didn't react very well to it.
Mm.
I used a lot of really unhealthy behaviors to try and deal with it because I didn't have the tools or the language.
Mm.
So I think, and that was where I started to see the cycles of my family being perpetuated in myself,
Mm.
that I needed to learn something
Mm.
different in order for me to not perpetuate those cycles. And that's something that I share
Yeah.
really regularly now. I talk about this cycle of showing up, wising up, and rising up. And
Mm.
actually, that has become the mantra for everything that we do, that I do personally and professionally, that we look at this rising up. Where do we want to be? What do we want to create? And then there are often one or two things missing. One is the showing up for it, where to show up, who to show up for, how to show up. Now, you know me, Annie, I'll show up to the opening of an envelope. No problem showing up, but I didn't know how, the what did I need to do? What does the path look like?
Yeah.
How do we monetize this situation? How do I build a team? How do I lead? And I had to go into real deep learning about myself. How do I cope with myself? How do
Yeah.
I cope with my demons?
Yeah.
How do I cope with the way that my brain works?
Yeah.
How do I cope with this inability to seemingly be employed? How do I cope with my inability seemingly to choose great intimate partners?
Yeah.
How do I, I had to do a lot of learning in order to show up in the right places, in order to show up for the right people, in order to show up for myself. And now what we do is we can kind of see the outcome of constantly applying those three things. And you know what? With this podcast being about hope, that's what that whole thing has been about. The hope is that rise up bit. It's the light. It's the always seeking the light, even in the darkness. And the two can't exist without each other.
Yeah.
The darkness has to be there in order for the light to be bright.
Yeah.
And honoring that whole journey has been, I mean it's been a wild ride, but that's what everything's kind of come to.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, if we could sort of go back to your younger days, how did hope actually figure in that? Did you feel that you were like set on a path that, you were going to leave school, get a job, yada, 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 and that was all the hope you had? Or did you always have this, no, I want to do something different. I hope for something different.
It's really interesting, that question, because I feel like there's two answers. There's the answer that I would have given you at the time, and then on reflection, there's the real answer. So the answer that I would have given you at the time was the hope that I had was my voice and the fact that I could sing and the fact that one day I would make it and I'd be famous and I'd be on the telly and I'd be a famous singer and Simon Cowell would ordain me in the Church of the X Factor. And, that was the thing that kind of kept me going. I'm going to be a singer. I'm going to work abroad. And actually, if I look back at what really was happening, there was something really interesting. something that happened when I was 13 and my sister was 14. And my sister and I, Gemma, were very, very close to this day. And she, you know, even though we were close siblings that fought like siblings do when they're children, I remember the adults fighting downstairs. And I remember that being very loud and very scary, but something my sister and I was used to. So what we would do when that was happening, instead of getting involved anymore, because we realized we couldn't stop them behaving like that, that wasn't something that was in our control. We used to sit in my sister's room and turn the volume on the TV up. So let them get on with whatever they were getting on with. They didn't bother us with the business. Like they were that inherently hurt. They were too busy hurting each other. And me and my sister would turn the TV up. And I remember sat on my sister's bed, 13 years old, and me and my sister agreeing that in some way, shape, or form, when we were older, we would find ways to help people not experience what we were experiencing in that moment, which was that isolation, that fear, that domestic abuse, that, you know, we didn't know what that would look like, but I remember the conversation. I remember the TV. I remember it, you know, it was, so we're talking, we were 13, 14. So we're going back to like sort of mid to late 90s. I remember the TV was one of those kind of small portable ones, but the fat ones, you know, like they were thick. There was none of the, like the thin screen situations there. You know, it was
little chunky thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It had an aerial on the top that you had to wiggle about. Yeah. And I can see it all. I can see the wallpaper. I just see the conversation. And it was real. And it's so interesting now that there are a couple of things that my sister and I have gone on to do and create that is us really living out that hopeful conversation. And that conversation didn't just come from nowhere. Like it was, I remember us eyeballing each other and making these plans and not really knowing what they were. And my sister now actually runs for Preston Domestic Violence Services. She's the CEO of that charity. I have created, yes, the big festoon, but underneath that, the CIC, the Fly Anyway Foundation, where we help people who've experienced domestic abuse build businesses. And I just think that is how hope showed up for us when we was 13 and 14. And, you know, we're 41 and 42 now. And this is how that hope is manifesting. And I find that magical. I find that really, really magical.
Just wonderful. Just wonderful. And you know, the other conclusion that's been a thread through all my podcasts, a lot of my guests have talked about, you know, obviously we talk about hope, but we also talk about the fact that hope without action and without, you know, actually doing something, it's nothing, is it? You've got to have the action to make that hope a reality. And again, you're the embodiment of that. You had these visions. You think, right, what have I got to do to actually get there? Haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? Even in the last 48 hours, that, you know, me and my team are doing that right now. So the event that we've got is really starting to make some waves. It's really capturing people's imaginations, but it's relatively small in terms of its reach outside of our little bubble. So it feels like we're kind of like famous, but famous in our own front rooms. Like people know who we are, but in our little bubble. And really with the scale of it now, it's really starting to gain some traction, but we can't create any more traction with the fuel that we've already used. So even in the last 24 hours, we're using visionary techniques like enlisting the assistance of AI, enlisting the assistance of big, broad scale event scale producers to come and work with us to really start to light the touch paper on what we've got proof of life of already. But that is always in the hope that we don't just have this event and this event happens, but it is a growing community that makes lasting and impactful change for the better for people. And every decision that I make is centered in creating that, which means that I can't lose sight of the hope that one day we'll have a community that is so sizable that it doesn't just make micro impact, it creates huge impact and world impact. And what we've got, the beautiful thing at the minute is that we've got this kind of ripple effect of people coming into the business or coming to the big festoon and them, you know, seeing the potential for themselves and starting to grow from that. Imagine when we can cast our net and have that butterfly effect happen like at scale. And so even in the last 24 hours, I am constantly moving the chess pieces towards the creation of that. And I think when you've got a purpose so compelling, you can't not.
Yeah.
People often ask me like, Dani, do you not get tired? I'm like, yeah, I get tired, but I can't not do it because it's so compelling to me. And it was funny, we was having a conversation even yesterday about how we move towards a goal or move towards the hope that you seek, right? And move towards the vision that you create. And you need a couple of types of tension in order to make that happen. So humans are naturally problem solvers. So we'll look at a problem and go, how do I fix that problem? And actually turning that on its head a little bit and going, either the pain that I'm experiencing is so big that I'm running away from it, like I'm moving away from the pain that I'm in, or the thing that I'm moving towards is so exciting and so compelling that I cannot help but move towards it. And so I think what I've managed to create for myself is the fabrication of those two types of tension. That we grow the event consistently and wildly. And you've seen me on stage, I talk about arena and kind of makes me a little bit sick in my mouth. I kind of go, right, so we're going to be at arena next year.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and that creates, you know, that costs a lot of money. It's going to cost us £500,000 to create. Have I ever tried to make £500,000 to pull an event off? No. Do I know that I'll find a way to do it? Yes. Is the thought of it so compelling that I'm excited to move towards it every single day? Yes. And so those two types of tension move me towards that hope, the fear of, well, I don't want to have egg on my face and I don't want to stand on stage in front of 800 of my community or thousands of my community and say, I'm going to do this thing and then not do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into horrific amount of debt by booking this whole big arena and then not paying for it. So there's the, not negative tension, but that kind of that real fear-based tension. And then this, I can see what it is that we're creating now because it's just becoming more and more itself. I can't help but move towards it.
It's just amazing. I mean, you are the embodiment. You are such a good example of having that vision and just putting everything into achieving it. And there's such a, I mean, even people that aren't, you know, don't run businesses, there's an absolute lesson to be learned of, you know, what is it I actually want? What is it that I actually will make me happy and will make my life fulfilled?
Yeah, what do you care about? Like, what do you give a shit about? Like, it's that. It doesn't have to be a business.
No. And I think so many people, I mean, don't get me started on the education system, you know.
I'll be right there with you, sis, on that one.
Primary teacher for 30 years and it's just gone, I don't know, it's gone completely bonkers. But it's so built on, you know, children getting percentages and all that kind of stuff. It's not built on find your passion, find what you love, do what you love. There is still an element of, well, you know, you've got to earn money. You can't enjoy yourself, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's a real product of the industrial age. You know, we talk about, without getting kind of too political, end stage capitalism, because if we think about sort of the industrial age and then, you know, those in power making more and more money, they need lots and lots of people to do the same thing over and over and over and over again in order to pay them the money that they want to keep them in a place of power. And that's the kind of situation that we're in, which means our education system has become essentially sausage factories that just churn out these little boxes of children who don't more often than not, don't necessarily fit into this small little box. And as our population grows, the more diverse these kids become because they have to. That's evolution. That's just the way that it happens. And also, if you think back, and I love psychology and I love biology and I love how things happen scientifically. So as much as you'll see me like singing Pink Pony Club in a blow-up suit on stage in a glittery cowboy hat, like I can get absolutely lost and totally nerd out on human behavior and why we are the way that we are, and the whole science of it just I find really compelling. I think that actually that's what makes what I do so interesting, is the fact that the two can live in the same place and still do great things. But going back to the whole like kind of kids situation, if you think about us as a species, we are tribe or pack animals essentially. And if you think within that tribe or within that pack, everyone would have a role, or the community would have roles within it. So
Yeah.
you'd have the hunters, you'd have the creators, you'd have the storytellers, you'd have the cooks, you'd have the nurturers, you'd have the mothers, you'd have the, so you'd, everyone would have like roles within the community, not gender specific, just roles. And that would mean that whatever your neurotype was, or your body type was, or whatever kind of it is, that how you were built or were naturally sort of designed, you would lean towards that. And all of that's been taken away from our young people now. So they're given this, well, you need to be a specialist in 12 subjects by the time that you're 16,
Yeah.
and none of those subjects need to interest you whatsoever. Like,
Yeah.
what I find that wild.
It's just bonkers, isn't it? I mean, the whole thing is,
Yeah.
when I first started teaching, it was, getting children curious about things. And
Yes.
was it W.B. Yeats who said, education isn't filling a jug, it's lighting a fire. And
Oh my
that's
God,
so,
yeah.
so true, isn't it? It's sparking that, "Oh, I really want to know about that. I really want to find out about that."
Yes.
And, passing children through tests where they have to sit and write for 45 minutes. Oh, don't get me started.
Yeah, I was dyscalculate. So I am dyscalculate. So
Mm,
like for me, sitting through math,
mm,
interestingly, because of the way that my brain works, I was naturally gifted academically,
mm,
and was very, very lucky to have that. So it was very strange being a straight A student and then not passing maths. It was
yeah.
like how that kind of fit together. And really, you could have just sat me out of maths. It wouldn't have made any difference anyway.
Yeah.
My son is very similar in that actually it's the other way around. He isn't academic in the like the biblical sense, in that he enjoys sitting doing reading, writing, arithmetic. However, what he doesn't know about animal care at 17 years old isn't worth knowing.
Mm,
And we actually took him out of mainstream school at 15 because he just wasn't built for all of the other subjects that he was being made to do.
yeah.
Came out into a specialist situation and he's thriving. He's the top of his class. The animals that he looks after are incredibly well looked after. And you just think, if you nurture the specialism and the curiosity, then what magic we can create
Yeah.
for ourselves as well, not just for our kids.
Oh,
In this
absolutely.
conversation, we won't fix the education system, but what magic we can create if we allow ourselves to lean into that even now.
I know. Have you heard the story of the animal school? I can't remember it exactly, but it's basically saying, all the animals, the fish, the monkeys, all this range of animals came, and the fish were told that they had to climb trees and they failed. The
Yeah.
monkeys were told that they had to do this and they failed. And it's a real, oh my goodness, why aren't we showing children
That,
their skills are and what
that one
natural.
thing.
I must
You
find it
can't.
because it's written down somewhere and it's so beautiful. And you get to the end of it and you think, oh my gosh, why are we churning these children through? But your one of your major triumphs is the building of your community. You've mentioned that already, but the fact that it is so, and you call it a safe community, which it absolutely is. People feel so safe. At the big festoon, people were just able to be themselves, knowing that they weren't going to be judged or
Yeah.
pointed at or negatively anyway. I mean, we pointed in your unicorn because it was great.
Absolutely. I fully expect points then.
But the whole thing about, being able to be yourself safely is really important to you, isn't it?
It really is. And the big fear when people come across me for the first time, the tendency is that, Dani wants to make people more like her, and that isn't the case. Like, I want people to be more themselves, and the necessity for all of us in all of our differences to understand each other more and bring our whole selves to the party is important now more than ever. If we think about the big festoon, if someone was to explain and has never been to the big festoon before, someone was to try and explain to someone who's never been before, I think the word "a lot" is often used. It's a lot, but also within that, people have got the autonomy to choose for themselves what how they want to experience the big festoon. So they can be there and tap in and tap out. They can sit on the floor, they can sit in the bean bags, they can move around, they can sit and watch every single one of the talks if they want to, they can get up and dance if they want to, they can not if they don't want to. And all of it is absolutely valid and nobody's judged one way or another. So just because, you know, some areas might look like some sort of wild hen party sort of situation, equally we have rooms where you can absorb that energy and go and decompress. And or you know, if you don't get up and dance, no one's going, why are you not getting up and dancing? The expectation is that I've been to events before where it's kind of frowned upon if you don't do that standing up dancing, getting pumped up like it, and that feels like that, and that feels ick. Like now I don't want to dance. Now that I have to, I'm not asked for it. Thank you very much.
It now, yeah.
But the freedom to choose helps those people where that feels good for them, they can. And for the people that doesn't feel good for, they cannot. And that is equally valid. And I think that with the big festoon is probably one of my biggest like feelings of achievement and sense of pride, is that people really do feel like that they can come along to the big festoon and be themselves. And we're really moving out of that, you know, oh, this just feels like a women's event. It's not a women's event. It's a non-gendered event. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what gender you are, man, woman, trans person, non-binary, gender, non-conforming, so on and so forth. Like, I don't care as long as you're not a knobhead. Like, be prepared to be kind to yourself and each other. And I think we're going to be fine.
It's kindness. It's the thing, isn't it? It's kindness and just fun. I mean, I can't remember what the song it was you were singing, but you were in a uniform, a unicorn costume, one of those inflatable ones, and you were singing and you just paused and said, I get paid to do this. It's just joyous. It's like she's, you know, living her dream, and it was just glorious. The fact that
the reason why I do
what you love.
And the reason why I do some of that is to just show people the lengths and the extremes to which you can go and feel joy and still have that energetic exchange. I mean, not everybody wants to stand on stage in an inflatable unicorn singing Pink Pony Club. Like, not everybody wants it. That's okay. But still, that level of silliness and joy and daftness and serious business do not have to be mutually exclusive. They don't have to live in separate areas. They can live side by side. And, you know, I'm a very serious businesswoman, and, you know, we do turn over 7 figures a year. And it is that sort of, you know, we are working at a very, very high level with high production values. And at the same time, gosh, we've got to laugh at ourselves in the process, haven't we? Flipping out.
My mantra as well, you know, if you can't be daft, and why do you have to sort of wear a suit and be serious and say, let's run it up the flagpole and all that kind of stuff?
I'm all right.
No. So what is the future? You've mentioned already some things you've been working on, and it sounds very exciting. What's the future for Dani Wallace?
So the future is to continue to grow the event, and to really, I have a vision for the big festoon that I can see us incrementally stepping. It's like we're on a steamroller and we can't help but move towards it. So in my mind, within the next 5 years, we have a 10,000 delegate event that has spaces for all. So it kind of feels like a bit like a Pink concert. We always explain it kind of like a Pink concert, but with areas where you can go and chill out, areas, you know, like, but for business, for growth and success and self-development and personal development. So you don't necessarily have to be an entrepreneur in order to attend, because no topic's off the table. So we've got life and business and life, all of the things intermingle. I think the more that we move towards gig economy, people taking back power for themselves, a lot of the ethos, a lot of what we teach and learn and share, and what our speakers teach and learn and share, means that everything's really applicable to most people. So we'll talk about things from sex and relationships all the way through to sales and marketing, all the way through to property and investment, and nothing's off the table in between. So it's to grow the event to 10,000 people here in the UK, hopefully, fingers crossed, in the next couple of years, and then to do the same over in the US. Now, at the minute, there's been a bit of a reticence to, you know, people have been saying to me, oh, Dani, are you sure you want to grow over in the US? And I'm like, yeah, actually now more than ever, because people need to find a home that feels like a safe space where we can grow those communities together. And I feel like in the places where we feel most divided are actually the places where the big festoon should have a home, which again, that kind of burden of responsibility for that that I feel. I mean, it's self-imposed, don't get me wrong, but if nobody else is doing it, then nobody else is doing it. So in my mind, we've got one big event over here in the UK. It'll always be in the north of England because I always want to represent the north. Not because I don't love the south, but there's a lot already going on there, and I'm such a champion for the northwest in here in the UK. And then another one over in the the west coast of the US, so in LA, because I feel like that's our safest state at the moment. So having those two big events on either side of the pond, and then a couple of little fringe events to start to introduce the big festoon and what we're all about in other countries. So in the next sort of 5 years, it is to grow our community so that that's when we get together a couple of times a year, and then the rest of the time we're just out there in the world being amazing and living the lives that we're choosing for ourselves, regardless of the bullshittery that's happening out in the world.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, it's just glorious. Just glorious. I just love your sod it, let's do it. How are we going to do it? Don't know, but we're going to do it.
Don't know, but let's go. Feels like this way.
Let's find out how we're going to do it. It's just wonderful. Oh my goodness me, we're coming to the end of our time. I could talk to you for hours. But I always ask my podcast guests, I always ask them a question, and that is, do you have a message of hope for my listeners? What would your message of hope be?
So a message of hope will be, there are very few things that are outside your circle of influence. And so when things feel hopeless, there are chinks of light in the room. It takes looking for them. And it is within those chinks of light that you can start to influence your situation. Now, don't get me wrong, there are horrific situations that happen out in the world, but we have a radical responsibility for ourselves, to ourselves and to each other, to always, always, always look for the chinks of light. And it was within those chinks of light, within those, I'm grateful for the breath in my lungs. When things were at my darkest, it was, I'm still here. So if I'm still here, then I've still got choice somewhere. And the second that isn't there, then you don't have choice, then there is no hope. So as long as there's breath in your body to be grateful for, then there is light to seek. And within those chinks of light, that's where your influence is. And this circle of influence is to understand. And I just want to share really, really quickly that we have more influence over more things than we consider possible in our day to day. So if we think about, the sun shining outside, and you could say, right, well, we've got no influence over the sun shining outside. Well, interestingly, there's a lot of conversations happening over climate and climate change and what have you. So you could decide to become a climate change campaigner. You could choose to become a politician, or you could choose to become an activist in that particular area and become so compelling that you can actually begin to change the way that literally the sun shines. And that's a reach, don't get me wrong. But we have more influence, and there is more within our circle of influence than we give ourselves. And it might sound really radically optimistic, but that's why I would much rather spend my brain thinking than thinking things are so dark and so desolate. That we have more within our influence than we give ourselves credit for. And the media and social media and the powers that be don't want us to believe that. And I think the more of us believe that we have more influence than we give ourselves credit for, the more positive change we can create in the world. So always look for the chinks of light.
Brilliant. Amazing. Just amazing. Dani Wallace, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Annie, thanks for being part of my world as well. It means everything. So thank you for the work that you do as well.
Thank you, darling. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Chronicles of Hope podcast with me, Annie Bennett. I hope you found inspiration, comfort, or perhaps even a newfound perspective around the meaning of hope. To find out more about the aims of the Chronicles of Hope organisation, please visit thechroniclesofhope.org, where you will find links to our social media accounts and where you will be able to make a much needed and appreciated donation. Thank you.